So I have to be a little bit quiet on this one. I'm going to try to blast through chapter 2, which I tried to do this before and the file got corrupted or something happened. The video just didn't work, so I got to do this again. I'm thinking I'm going to try to do it a little bit quicker. Also, I'm going to have video on this. I'm not going to have the Kindle version up or anything like that, but I'm still going to have the book out. I have read almost all the way through chapter 3. So I think while this chapter 2 is rendering, I'm going to read the rest of chapter 3 and maybe just give a reaction right away once that's done. I hope you like this. Early on in this podcast or summary series or whatever this is, I'm going to try a whole bunch of different things and kind of see what sticks. If you don't think any of this, if you don't think the video adds to it, that's fine. I'm not going to have my feelings hurt. But as usual, this is brought to you by my long-suffering wife. So, love her very much. Don't want to spend too much time editing and a whole bunch of other things because it'll take away from the family and, So, but I do like doing this. And I am super excited to see what happens further on in the book. Now, chapter 2 has a really cool prologue blurb, and I've been enjoying those more and more as the series goes on. I wonder if when I go back to Gardens of the Moon and Deadhouse Gates, if I will enjoy those even more, because they're pretty much gibberish the first time through. At least I found it that way. But this one starts like this, and I think it's just forecasting in the future. And this one is by Silver Fox, which didn't mean anything to me until I read chapter 3. It says, "One Arm's host bled from countless wounds, an endless campaign, successive defeats, followed by even costlier victories. But of all the wounds borne by the army of Dujek One Arm, those to its soul were the gravest." I'm excited. I'm excited to see this fight against the Panian Domin, whatever they end up being. It sounds like they're kind of like this, almost like religious zealot type. It's a holy war, I think it's explained. I don't know much about them, but it sounds like, the third chapter, we'll get to that, but the third chapter is going to go into this council, which will be kind of like a loose confederation of previously warring groups. We've already seen that, how the Talanai Mass, different clans would kind of band together to fight against to defend themselves against the Jagat tyrant. And we've seen that in our past. Sometimes they would think of the Peloponnesian Wars, all these Greek city-states banding together to fight against the Persians. And that's happened other times in our own history, but as well as in fiction and stuff like that. So this first part, I'm not going to go as detailed into the scenes if I can help it. I do tend to ramble. This first scene has Captain Picker and what was the name of her buddy, the other person here? Blend, which is a soldier, and they are stationed in between Pale and Darujistan. They're stationed there to kind of check for contraband, also to tax and tariff the merchants that are going back and forth between the cities. The Panian Domain is way down on the south, and they are kind of preparing things in the north, kind of gaining allies and putting things together. They're about to have this council, and it's interesting. And they find on this road less traveled that not lots of people are there. They find this guy with a backpack of some sorts of sack with all of his things that he's going to sell in Pale, which has been taken over, obviously, from the Malazan Empire. And so they're going to check to see if he has any contraband, meaning like, is anything cursed? Is there anything we need to be aware of? First, they tell him to stop. This is Captain Picker tells her to stop, or tells him to stop, and says you have five crossbow bolts or quarrels, I think they say, on him, which ends up later on. They remind him that there's 10 or a dozen crossbow bolts. He says, I thought there was only 5, and kind of calls them out on their bluff a little bit. But they are going to ask if he has anything dangerous. And he says, I don't have anything of major, of concern to you, but I do have something blessed that that was blessed before. It's these ivory torques. It came from the ivory tusk of this ancient ascended one Treach, and from this who was kind of a hunter, and it was one of his prey, I guess a famous prey or something. And it kind of reminds you of the early Romans would pass around Alexander's cloak. People would claim to have Alexander the Great's cloak, and you kind of look back and think, well, did he? I know there are places that kind of reminds you of some religious things where they would claim to have Jesus's cross, or a particle of it, or a fragment of it, and at this, it kind of seems like really that seems convenient, and it's not able to be verified. And in this, Picker looks at these torques and goes, really? And it's this set of torques that 3 on one arm, and they go together into a seamless torque. And so that raises her eyebrows, this Picker. But everything else is kind of less than that. She asks the artisan, who's kind of this old decrepit man, at least that's the way I view him, who's a little bit sketchy, but he shows whatever else is in there, and she just kind of can't get her eye off of this blessed torque thing that doesn't have any markings, but I think it was wrapped in Treach's own molt hair, which is kind of gross because that's his molted shed hair. But she wants to take him up on it a little bit, and she's going to pay about several years' salary, or enough for him to live comfortably for several years. But before that, she wants to try it on to make sure she's not getting ripped off. She doesn't know for sure if it's from this Treach, but he's a little bit sketchy, and they're going to just send him on his way. She puts it on, it works just right, seamless, and sends him on his way. He says his name is Manug, or Munug. Picker glances up and says, you poor bastard, and sends him on his way, basically. And so in the next scene, we catch up with one of the coolest introductions to a character yet in this series. I still think Tool is maybe the coolest character so far, at least as far as his entrance, but this might be a close second. And the reason I like it also is this guy's dark, this person that he's going to go meet. So Manug in the next scene is on his way, continuing the path, and actually takes another path off that path, and looking around, making sure he isn't being tracked, and ends up going down this side path down some kind of canyon or something where there's no light, it's all just shadow, and sees this glowing tent. It's glowing with red within, and there's this brazier burning, and within that you can hear coughing, and he's kind of concerned because he thinks he's late for this appointment that he has, and says, after all, gods are not known for forgiving natures. He doesn't want to disappoint the person he has a appointment which really raises your eyebrow. At least it did for me. And the coins were heavy. You know, this guy's not a strong dude. He has these tumors between his legs that eventually seem like it's kind of been a cruel joke. But you know, we'll get there. He's kind of uncomfortable. He knows that a god could just get rid of them with the blessing, but with that would come being not subjugated to, but owing that god a favor for doing that, and you never know what they would ask. It can be rough, but with that gold that he got, hopefully he can go back and get them healed and da 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 da. Now, the reason why this person wanted it, I thought it was interesting because I'm already a little bit having my eyebrow up, I think, as most people would with these torques, but there's obviously more than meets the eye. It's not the other things that he has. It is his painting. His painting is his greatest skill. And I loved that. You know, even though, you know, when he goes into this tent, this coughing god asks if it was found. What does he exactly say? Says that the artisan says there were soldiers on the trail, master. That's why he was late. Did they discover it? The artisan smiled as he was kind of prostrate on the tent floor at the entrance. No, they searched my pack as I knew they would, but not my person. And later on in the next scene, we'll find that they knew something was up, which is neat. But we'll get there. So, takes out this stack of cards, and perfect stack of cards, this deck of dragons. You know, they've been a major point up to this, and he has painted these individually, it looks, but they each have a flaw to them. And the flaw isn't just like a misstroke or something like that. Each of these kind of conveys some type of anguish or pain. So we've seen how things have turned out when people have used these decks. This can't be good, right? This can't be good. And this pleases this god. And he tells Munnig that he's pleased with it. And he also recognizes that as an artist would, he put his own kind of feeling and torment and emotions into this deck. But it's very interesting because this Munnig guy is kind of getting the old Wormtail treatment, where he's following this crippled god, doing his favors, but he's kind of accepting whatever mistreatment comes his way, and actually thanks him for it and says, well, I want to keep being in torment. This is what I want. It kind of reminds me of the people who would do like the self-flagellation sort of thing, suffering so that one day they can kind of earn the god's respect, or, you know, it kind of is reminding me of that in a way. And this guy, or this god, this crippled god, it ends up being the crippled god in the next page. And that's a big deal because, you know, the last book is the crippled god, so I wonder about him. But he seems, obviously this is an important person, an important figure. And I don't know if he is the fallen one that got gobbled up, ripped up into pieces and gobbled up. I really don't know. I tend to think maybe not, but maybe I'm missing something. I'm sure it'll come to me. I'm sure if I went back, I would understand it a little bit more. But he is saying that, you know, Munnig, you want to have comfort. You don't want to feel, he calls him out on this lie. He's like, you don't want to be suffering. You have all this coin. You want to be healed. I'll go do it. I'll heal your tumors. And so he does. And the way he does it is he basically makes Munnig crumple and scream and is being tortured, and the god is laughing. He's kind of a got some sick jokes, and his tumors are gone, but his legs are now crippled, and from now on he's going to have to drag his way. But he says that Munnig should be happy with that. What does he put? He says, "Cherish this moment, dear Munnig." Am I saying that right? I'm sure if I went to the audiobook, it would be way different. "Cherish this moment. By your hand, the new game is begun. By your hand, the world shall tremble." So this deck of cards is a major, major thing. The last two books have had awesome plots and things like that, and really interesting context. But I do feel like it has all come to this. And this seems like the sort of thing that isn't just going to be in this book, but is going to have larger ramifications. I might be wrong, but it sure seems like this is a major, major deal. Next scene, we have Picker and Blen, the people who stopped Munnig, and she still has her torques on and realizes that she can't get them off. So we'll see what happens with that. Is she going to go crazy? Is she going to, is it going to squeeze? It kind of reminds me again of the Silver Hand, Wormtail's Silver Hand. I don't mean to go back to Harry Potter, but it just reminds me of that. It just reminds me of that. It seems, I guess it really shouldn't, because it's not really, I guess, it's just interesting. It's just interesting. She puts it on, and we just never know what's about to happen with those things, but it doesn't look good. And here's where we understand that they knew that something was up with this merchant, and so they put in one of Quickben's little magic tracker dot pebbles into the pack, because sometimes it's better not to know what's up with the person, what they have. And they knew they knew it was more about what he had. He wasn't being that good of an actor. They knew. They've been around the block, and so they put the tracker to get to see where he's going, which I think is smart, right? Because if they just had the deck, maybe they wouldn't get anywhere. So they head their way back up the trail. When they get close to back up the trail, I think Quickben comes down on one of those flying quarrels, or not quarrels. That's quarrels. I actually got that right. I'm surprised. And Quickben sees that Picker's got a messed up aura around him, something dark. He knows that there's bad auras and bad warrens all over the place, but he recognizes that Picker has something on him that shouldn't be there. Asks him what it is. He says he has this blessing of an ascendant, and I think Picker wanted this because she is a military person, and it's supposed to be from this great hunter, and what does she have to lose? Even if it's fake, then whatever, but it's from this hunter. Maybe she thinks it'll make her a great marksman or a great swordsman, or or swordswoman. Do you say swordswoman, or do you say swordsman if it's a female swordsman? I don't know. Anyway, I think she thinks maybe that's going to happen, and he's saying, okay, great, well, which ascendant is this torque from on your arm? And she says, Treach. He says, oh, that's just great. What's wrong with Treach? Perfect for a soldier, the tiger of summer, the lord of battle. And Quickben says, well, 5 centuries ago, maybe, Treach veered into his soul-taken form 500 years ago, and now is a beast. And the beast hasn't had a human thought ever since. It's not just mindless, it's insane. I don't know if that means he's in the Chaos Warren. I don't know if that means that wolf from the prologue is, Treach, or who knows. Maybe he's still just wandering the continent somewhere. Interested to know, but it sure sounds like either it might make Picker crazy, or the fact that the wolf doesn't have a sane mind Picker can't make a fair exchange with that wolf to get these things off of him, and basically he's stuck with them, which is great as a reader, sucks as Picker. Is she going to have her arm chopped off? I didn't catch if it was on her sword arm, her main arm, or her offhand, but we'll maybe see that. I tend to be guessing that she's going to have her arm chopped off at some point, but that's what would happen in any of these other fantasy books. I don't know if Steven Erikson would do that. Who knows? It might make her turn into some dolphin or something, some dolphin who prophesies, for all we know. All right, so forget the Torques, and he tells him about the pebble, that he dropped a pebble in, and Quickben is going to go investigate, which is awesome. Before that, in the next scene, and I think that's awesome. I was super excited for this, and I think this chapter is amazing, and we're just getting to the real cool part. Quickben, it recognizes that Quickben, and this is just for summary, that Quickben and Whiskey Jack and Dewjack and Kaladin Brood and all them that used to be warring are going to have this council to see what to do with the Panian Domin. And that's kind of what's on our mind as a reader. At least it was for me. But there's obviously more going on in the book. There's often several arcs going on. There already are, I want to see what's happening with Talk and with Tool and this Lady Envy. I want to see where Tool's sister is up to. I want to see what's up with our boy Perrin. There's lots of things on top of just this battle that's happening with the Southern Panian Domin, which is a weird name. I thought it would be domain, but Domin, that's a strange word. I don't even know exactly what that means. Anyway, there's going to be this great meeting for this great war. And Quickben, I like how he puts this. Quickben loosed his soul's chains and slipped away from his body. From the moment he could sense nothing of the innocuous water-worn pebble. So, you know how the Talani mass bonecasters can kind of track their own kind, and they can track, I guess not even just their own kind, they can just track life, I guess. Quickben can track his little pebbles, which is awesome. Doesn't quite know where it is. He's tracking it to this place at this tent. So it's still there with this old creepy crippled god. And he sees this glowing red tent with the brazier. And when he gets there, this crippled god is kind of coughing. It sounds like he's kind of huffing in the smoke from the brazier. And Quickben recognizes that it's kind of a familiar Warren, but doesn't know what it is, which is Quickben is awesome. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters. Is he kind of the Dumbledore, Gandalf of this? I mean, it sure seems like he is so far. And he doesn't quite recognize it. And when he gets to the tent, the crippled god, he knows. I wish I could just call him Morty so I don't have to keep saying crippled god. But this Morty guy, I'm just going to call him that for now. He gestures. He knows that the mage is there, and with his broken hand kind of gestures him to come in. And I don't know if he's holding the pebble, but he says, "Are you looking for this? Are you looking for this?" And at that moment, Quickben is starting to realize that this guy's emanating something super dangerous. He puts his hand on the ground, Quickben does, and immediately sees or senses that kind of like the Mother Earth is infected. I think she's called Burn, and I don't exactly understand what she is other than she's a living Warren. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of just being Mother Earth, right? And senses that something's not quite right. And this crippled god Morty says, "In this realm, I am as a cancer, and with each passing light, I grow yet more virulent. She cannot awaken, whilst I burgeon in her flesh. Your gods have bound me, mortal, and think the task complete." Now, this is the point where things kick off. He knows how dangerous it is. I want to get it. I want to make sure I get it exactly right. So he has this pebble, Quickben's pebble. He says, "You realize now," the figure continued between wheezing gasps, "that you must retrieve it. For one such as myself to hold such a link to your admirable powers, mortal, it's worse than could ever be imagined. Or the potential for evil is awful, right? The wizard doesn't exactly know who he is, but he knows this is not a good thing. You wish a service in exchange for my tracker." Again, this is... You don't want to do these exchanges. It seems quite clear. "Indeed, if I must suffer, then so too must the gods of this world." And immediately, it doesn't take 1 second for Quickben to think about it. He flares up his warrens and blasts in there. It's basically like no deal, no exchange. He's got his hand going towards the pebble. His other hand smacks this crippled god Morty in the head, gouges at his eyes, knocks his head back, grabs the pedal, is getting out of there, and is blasted in the back. The power of the Warrens winked out. And then Quickben scrambled to his feet and ran. And the wave struck him from behind, sent him sprawling onto the hot, steaming ground. Screaming, the wizard writhed beneath the sorceress' onslaught. He tried to pull himself further away, but the power was too great. It began dragging him back. He clawed at the ground, stared at the furrows, his fingers gouged in the earth, saw the dark blood welling from them. I just want to say here that, sometimes you need the right reading environment for something to really stick. I have some young girls. I had one of them. I was at their dance class waiting for one of them. So in the background, I heard this, dancing music, and I was gripped in like this primary type, really young, high, happy music. And I was reading this, and I was just gripped. "Oh, burn, forgive me." That's what Quickben is thinking. He knows he's messed up. The invisible, implacable, I don't know if that's implaceable or implacable grip, pulled him closer to the tent entrance. Hunger and rage radiated from the figure within, as well as the certainty that such desires were moments from deliverance. Quickben was helpless. "You will know such pain," the god roared. And this is like my favorite part because of the term that Steven Erikson uses. He says that, a hand comes up and grabs Quickben like a giant child snatching a doll. If you've ever seen a young child snatch a doll, sometimes, they'll take care of their little doll, but sometimes they might just have one leg and be swinging it around because it doesn't have a bone structure. It's not going to scream out. And it's like Quickben has just been grabbed by a limb and dragged down. In my mind, I think of his leg being dragged or like his arm and just his other leg just flopping. And and just dragging him down. At first, I thought this was that creepy figure doing this. And I thought, oh, Quickben is screwed. He's being drugged down 100 feet and just going to be buried alive. But then we find out that he spits out this dirt, and then he's in this cavern. He has breath again, this dark cavern. Looks up and sees this giant figure I had to close the book just to kind of imagine what I was seeing. This giant figure that is about 15 times greater or larger than Quick Ben, which, if he's about 6 feet, that would be like 90 feet about. So that's about 8 stories high, 8 to 9 stories high at least. And that's a huge giant. And this big giant is reaching up into the cavern muddy roof. And to me, I think, well, okay, that's the guy that grabbed him down. Does that mean he's like a giant Stretch Armstrong Mr. Tickles of the Malazan world? Or does he just have really long arms anyway and he just reached that high? How far down is Quick Ben? Is he just 20 feet below? But as he was being reached down, they could hear the fury of this crippled god. And I don't know if this is right below. Maybe they dragged him way somewhere else. I imagine a Mr. Tickles, but I just I tend to go to those kinds of things. But he looks up, and this giant, it's like he's struggling with this roof as there's clay kind of going down his arms. It's like the whole thing is collapsing, and this giant is struggling and shaking and saying, help us, help me. And as somebody who sometimes, not so much anymore, but used to have a lot of like night terrors and things, especially when I would play video games or something at night or read something really wild, I sometimes when I was sleeping would hold the roof or the wall and from collapsing onto my wife. So in my mind, I was being a hero and I was saying, come on, help me. And she wouldn't help me because, she told me to knock it off and wake up. And, but I understand the struggle and I am a hero. I've saved her from grenades being tossed in our bedroom and the ceiling falling, all sorts of things. Natural hero here. Now, this is happening, and he's saying, help us. Quick Ben says, I don't know how. And he sees that down the cavern, way, I think hundreds of yards away, there's another giant. He looks this way, and there's a few more. So there's 4 or 5 of them, all doing the same thing. And I love how they kind of describe this cavern roof, because there's these white kind of seams, almost like rib cages in the roof. I don't know if that means it's luminescent or if it is big wooden, not wood, but bone. But it seems like this Mother Earth's bone rib cage, that they are within Mother Earth. I shouldn't say Mother Earth. And it's kind of collapsing. And I don't know if that necessarily means they're holding up the structure, if that's all that's going on, or if while the crippled god is kind of doing this cancerous degradation of Burn, if the sorcerers, or if these giants are also doing some kind of magical thing on the other side as kind of a band-aid solution, but it's just not going to hold for too long. And I can't help but think that the cavern collapsing isn't the biggest of the biggest concern here, rather than the corruption that has to do with other things involved, rather than just the structural thing. But I might be wrong. But I think that is very cool. And so Quick Ben leaves that pebble with them, saying, I don't know how I'm going to fix this, but I will do what I can. And I can't remember if he says that he has someone he will go to, but he says, what will happen if Burn dies? He's thinking this. I don't think I want to find out. All right, then. It's my war now. So now we have the Panian conflict and this other conflict, which seems much greater. And it has Quick Ben freaked out. He says, I will find an answer, I swear it. And then he gestures and his warrant opens, he steps through, and he's gone. The next scene is very short. Quick Ben is being shaken awake, and when he wakes up, Picker, the one with the torque, sees him, and he sees that Quick Ben is freaked out. And when the Gandalf character is showing that much emotion, and you can see it in his eyes, then you know this is a bigger, grander deal, which I think is great. This book is setting things up, I think, in a way that is a little easier to follow than the last two books, though I would like to go back and really go into detail the way I'm doing with this. I kind of did myself a disservice with the first two books by just I like to read fast. I read both of those. The first book I read in about 5 days. The next one I read in about 6 days. So that's quite quick for me. And I know I left a lot behind. I didn't chew on it the way I'm doing with this one. And I kind of feel, I did follow it and I was loving it, but I know I missed a whole bunch of details. But we'll go back. We'll go back eventually. The next scene has our guy, Ganos Perrin. I don't know how that is said. I'm sure I'll say both of them interchangeably. And he's having these dreams, these nightmares of drowning. I think he's also having, he's being disoriented every time he closes his eyes, thrashing in panic with this vertigo, as if he's in an unknowable place. And so he's kind of a little messed up. He's tainted inside. His body, his spirit, his body doesn't feel like his own, even though he's inhabiting it. And he's just got this new, he's the new bridge burner leader. He's got Whiskey Jack's old job, and he needs to be on his game, especially since he hasn't really earned their respect yet. He was just part of the Malazan Empire that turned against them, even though he wasn't directly involved with that kind of decision when they were kind of left to be slaughtered. He's got to earn his keep here. But Mallet, the healer from the book 1, recognizes this and recognizes that this is going to be taxing on poor Perrin. I thought in the first book that Perrin, I don't know if I've mentioned this, I'm sure I have. I don't want to keep repeating myself if I have, but it sure seemed like someone is going to ascend. We saw some of that in the last book. It seemed like this Perrin is a prime candidate for ascending. I thought he was going to ascend to the Shadow Throne's throne, which would make him the new Shadow Throne, I guess. Would that be his title? But it seems like he would be the new Lord of Shadow. That's what I thought was going to happen. For all I know it might still, but it seems like he's a prime candidate to be one of these ascended ones. Or he could be a candidate for having the most tragic ending. But we'll see. We'll see. I think I like this guy, though. I think I like him. I'd like to go back to the first book because even though lots of cool stuff was happening, I wasn't too emotionally connected to a lot of them, like Hedge and Fiddler, and they were names, but I'd like to go back. I'd like to go back eventually. Now, there was a confusion within him that wouldn't settle. He had escaped from the world of that sword, yet he feels the chains around him drawing even tighter, even though he's out of that shadow realm, which I wonder if that draconic guy is still in there, or whatever his name is. If he's escaped with that, that tampering, which I assume that's what it means, that they would be able to get out of it with, a loophole. But Perrin is gone from it, but he still is subject to it in this weird way. He goes up to the Barghast, what was his name? Trots. And we love Trots, as in the first book, he was loading up this boat before it was even in the water. It was kind of a funny thing. Now he's being all philosophical, giving vague responses, and kind of being poetic, saying, I am I am the tale, and the tale has been unspoken for too long, but no longer. I am a sword about to leave its scabbard. I am iron, and in the day's light I shall bind you all. Ha! So he's kind of getting a little bit loquacious. That's the word that Mallet says he's being. And, yeah, says that there's going to be this meeting. Perrin wants to know what Whiskey Jack and Dujek have planned. I think both for that meeting, but also their own little plans, because even though they're going to be this group thing, got to make sure you have some plan Bs and your own little side ideas as well. And it sounds like they're going to have that, but they won't. This Barghast Trots isn't going to tell Perrin. And later on, Hedge comes in the next scene and yanks on Trot's ponytail. And this makes Trot's eyes go big, and this makes Hedge laugh. Which I think that's about the only thing that happens in that scene, other than saying that Whiskey Jack and them are about to have this meeting, and now Hedge is going to take control of. The Barghast had a post, and now Hedge is going to be at that post. The next scene, Whiskey Jack talks to Perrin, recognizes that Perrin is a little bit funky. Mallet, the healer, is recognizing that he's maybe not super suited right now and fit for duty. Whiskey Jack's leg is still messed up, and Whiskey Jack is trying to give him a way out if he doesn't feel up for it. Perrin has already been stabbed by one of the bridge burners, and he is now leading them. And Whiskey Jack is giving them the option. You're a good captain. We have other elite units that you can be in charge of. But are you sure you want to be the captain of the bridge burners? And I think from the prologue of the first book, this was his childhood dream. So he says, yeah, I want to keep doing this. A woman bridge burner comes up. She's very tall and kind of disrespects Perrin by reporting that the rounds have changed to Whiskey Jack, her old boss, and he directs her to Perrin because there's a hierarchy, and she kind of scowls. She still doesn't really respect him, as he's going to have to kind of earn their respect. And in any other book that would happen, but you never know. You never know what's about to happen in this story. And even though he wasn't a part of it, you just never know. Okay, so the next scene, Whiskey Jack enters a gatehouse where there was going to be another little meeting at the scribe's table. Mallet is there, and Perrin isn't there. He's worse for wear, sort of thing. And Mallet also just says, he tells Whiskey Jack that Perrin is definitely sick. It's not tumors, it's not cancer, but he's sick. Almost like it's a sickness of his, a sickness of his mind or his soul or whatever it is. It's something that's going to need a magical remedy, almost like he's cursed in some way. Something happened to him on his way to Darujistan, and that's what's killing him. He's fighting off these sorceries. Now, Mallet asks if he's in any shape to take command of the bridge burners, and Whiskey Jack says, "Well, you're the healer here. I should be asking you." And so they're going to talk to Quickben and Spindle, which I don't know who Spindle is. Was he from the other book? He might be a mage and sapper. Oh, I love the sappers. The sappers from the second book, that might be my favorite arc. The Chain of Dogs was so Awesome. Anyway, they're going to take him to these two to get them looked out. And we'll see what happens. But the next chapter, chapter 3, is going to be this meeting. It's going to be this meeting between Kaladin Brood, an ambassador of Moonspawn, the Rivi people, Silver Fox, and the Bridge Burners, Whiskey Jack, Dujek, and another person from Kaladin Brood's side, his very unlikely and surprising number 2. So we'll see how that goes. Was this interesting to have it with a video? I don't know if it added anything, but I do like to talk. I do like to sometimes write things down. I sometimes it's just easier to talk to someone rather than just talk in a microphone. But if it doesn't add anything, that's fine. I can just do it by audio as well. But I hope this was interesting. Thank you for listening to the first couple episodes, I guess. Give me your feedback on if you would like it to be more brief. Are you okay with going through each of these scenes and breaking him down in this kind of detail? I know there's much more detail I could break down, but these are some of the big points that stood out to me. I probably could make it a little bit more brief, but I don't mind talking about it either. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So let me know, and thank you. I'll see you on the next one, hopefully. Thanks.